The Greyhound bus wheezed to a stop at the last station in Pinecrest Valley, a forgotten town nestled against the Cascade Mountains where Oregon met Washington. Rain pounded the metal roof like angry fists as passengers disembarked in twos and threes, rushing toward waiting cars or the small covered area that passed for a terminal. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Only one figure remained motionless beneath the downpour. She stood there, slight, soaked to the bone, a faded backpack clutched against her chest. Her dark hair hung in wet ropes around her face, and water traced paths down hollow cheeks that hadn't known enough meals. The station attendant, an older man with nicotine-stained fingers, glanced at her through the streaked window of his booth. "Last. Bus out isn't till morning," he called, his voice carried away by the wind. She didn't respond, just blinked through rain-clumped lashes. He stepped out, umbrella tilted against the storm. "You need to come inside, miss." When she didn't move, he reached for her arm. She flinched violently, stumbling backward. Her throat worked, lips parting, but no sound emerged. The attendant squinted at the ugly purple bruising that circled her neck like a macabre necklace. "Jesus," he whispered, "you need a doctor." She shook her head fiercely, took another step back. Her eyes were wide, wild with something that made him think of trapped animals. "Police, then?" Another violent shake of the head. She fumbled in her pocket, produced a tattered slip of paper. He squinted at the faded address scrawled in uneven letters. "Ridgeline Road. That's miles from here. Nothing up there but forest and that old Hanson place." He hesitated. "Look, I can call someone." Her eyes pleaded with such intensity that his words faltered. She reached for the paper, but he held it just beyond her grasp. "At least wait out the storm. There's a shelter in town that takes—" She snatched the paper back, clutching it like salvation. The attendant sighed, scratched his beard. "Suit yourself. Ridgeline's that way." He pointed toward a road that disappeared into dense pines. "But no one's going to pick you up hitchhiking in this weather, and it's a 15-mile walk." She nodded, shouldered her meager backpack and started walking. The attendant watched her retreating form grow smaller against the darkening sky. When she disappeared around the bend, he shook his head, muttered, "Damn shame," and retreated to his booth. Inside, he picked up the phone, then set it down again. Not his business. Never his business. The rain turned icy as dusk fell. The woman, she hadn't given her name, hadn't made a sound, trudged along the shoulder of the winding mountain road. Passing headlights occasionally illuminated her figure, but no one stopped. In a town this small, strangers meant trouble. At the gas and go on the edge of town, she paused beneath the fluorescent glow of the overhang. Through the windows, she could see families purchasing snacks, travelers filling coffee cups, lives being lived with noise and purpose. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, a ghost with rain-smeared features and haunted eyes. The pedal jingled as a man stepped out, beard thick and dark beneath a worn trucker cap. He glanced at her, then did a double-take. "You lost, girl." She didn't meet his eyes, just stepped back farther into the shadows. "Hey, I'm talking to you." When she didn't answer, his face hardened. "We don't need your kind here. Town's got enough. Troubles?" Inside, the cashier looked up at the raised voice. She caught the woman's eye through the window and picked up the phone, lips moving as she spoke to someone on the other end. The woman turned and ran, abandoning the temporary shelter. Behind her, the bearded man called out, but his words dissolved in the wind. She ran until her lungs burned, until the lights of town fell away completely. The storm intensified, branches cracking overhead as lightning split the sky. After what felt like hours, she stumbled upon a dirt turnoff, barely visible in the darkness. The worn post marking the entrance had no name, just a carved eagle with outstretched wings. She checked the paper again, squinting to make out the crude map sketched below the address. This had to be it. The dirt path wound through towering pines, mud sucking at her shoes with every step. When lightning flashed, she glimpsed a clearing ahead and the dark silhouette of a cabin. No lights burned in the windows. She hesitated at the edge of the tree line, heart hammering. A crack of thunder startled her forward. 3 wooden steps led to a covered porch with a single chair. She approached the door, hand raised to knock, then froze as the distinctive sound of a shotgun being cocked came from behind her. "Turn around, slow." The voice was deep, female, with an edge like broken glass. The woman obeyed, raising trembling hands to show they were empty. A tall figure emerged from the shadows at the side of the cabin, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothes that blended with the night. The shotgun in her hands didn't waver. "Who sent you?" The woman fumbled for her paper, tried to show it. Rain had turned it to pulp. She discarded it, then pointed to her throat, shaking her head. "Can't speak or won't speak." She touched the bruises on her neck, then let her hand fall. The figure stepped closer. Lightning revealed a woman in her 40s, hair cropped military short at the sides, but longer on top, streaked with premature silver. Her face was all sharp angles, with a long scar that ran from temple to jawline. She wore cargo pants tucked into combat boots, and a black thermal shirt beneath an open flannel. Dog tags glinted at her neck. "This is private property." The younger woman nodded, then gestured down the mountain, a question in her eyes. "Town's that way. Shelter closes at 9. Another headshake. The silent woman pointed to the address on the ruined paper, then to the cabin. The older woman's eyes narrowed. She lowered the shotgun slightly. "You're looking for Marissa." A nod, hope flickering. "Marissa Hayes has been dead for 3 years. The hope was extinguished. The silent woman's shoulders slumped, and she swayed on her feet. Exhaustion, hunger, and despair collided, buckling her knees. She sank to the wet porch boards. The older woman watched impassively. "Who are you?" to her. The younger woman fumbled in her sodden backpack, produced a water-damaged photograph in a plastic sleeve. She held it out with shaking hands. The armed woman didn't move to take it. "I don't need to see it. No one knew Marissa was here except family." Her voice hardened. "And those who hunted her." The silent woman shook her head frantically, pointing to herself, then making a rocking motion with her arms. Understanding dawned slowly in the older woman's eyes. "You're claiming to be her daughter." A nod. "Marissa never had children." The silent woman closed her eyes, a single tear mingling with the rain on her face. She struggled to her feet, wobbling, and turned to leave. "Wait," she paused. "Show me the photo." With trembling fingers, she held it out again. The older woman approached cautiously, shotgun still ready, and took the plastic sleeve. She studied it, expression unreadable in the darkness. Without warning, she seized the younger woman's arm, yanking her into the light spilling from a newly opened doorway. The cabin's interior glowed with the orange warmth of a wood stove. A large dog raised its head from a rug, ears alert. "Don't move!" the older woman ordered, backing away to grab a lantern from a hook. She held it close to the silent woman's face, studying her features with laser intensity. Something shifted in her expression. Recognition, confusion, then a flash of pain so raw it transformed her face completely. "Those eyes," she whispered. "Christ!" She lowered the lantern, stepped back. "Get inside before you drown." The silent woman hesitated. "Now." She stumbled across the threshold. The interior was sparse but orderly, a main room with a wood stove, kitchen area, and small living space. 2 doors led to what she assumed were bedrooms or storage. Everything gleamed with military precision. No dust, no clutter, nothing out of place. "Strip!" The woman's eyes widened in fear. "Your clothes are soaked through. You'll get hypothermia. Bathroom's there." The older woman pointed to a door. "Towels under the sink. I'll find something dry." Relief flooded her face. She nodded gratefully and disappeared into the bathroom. The older woman stood motionless in the center of the room, staring at the closed door. The dog padded over, nudging her hand. She absently stroked its head. "What the hell, Marissa?" she murmured to the empty room. "What didn't you tell me?" In the bathroom, the silent woman peeled off layers of wet clothing. Her body told a story of hardship, ribs visible beneath pale skin, old scars scattered. Across her back, fresh bruises blooming on her arms. The mirror showed a face too thin, too haunted for its 20-some years. Dark circles made her blue eyes seem unnaturally large. She touched the bruising around her throat, gingerly. The doctor had said her voice might return in time, that the damage wasn't permanent. But 3 months had passed, and she'd produced nothing more than pained whispers that felt like swallowing fire. A knock startled her. She wrapped herself in a towel. Clothes outside the door. She cracked it open after footsteps retreated, finding a pile of clean garments, flannel pants, thick socks, a thermal shirt, and a worn sweatshirt, all too big, but dry and warm. She dressed quickly, combed fingers through tangled hair, and emerged. The older woman sat at a small table, the shotgun within reach but no longer aimed. The photo lay before her, alongside a glass half filled with amber liquid. "Sit," she obeyed. "Perching on the edge of a chair. When was the last time you ate?" She shrugged slightly. The older woman rose without comment, moved to the kitchen area, and returned with a bowl of something steaming. Stew reheated on the wood stove. She set it down with a chunk of bread and a glass of water. "Eat." The silent woman didn't need to be told twice. She ate with the careful restraint of someone who'd known hunger intimately. Not too fast, small bites, savoring each mouthful. The older woman watched her with unnerving intensity. "Marissa Hayes was my sister in every way that matters," she finally said. "Not blood. We served together. 3 tours in Afghanistan. She saved my life twice." She tapped the scar on her face. "Would have been dead in Kandahar if not for her." The silent woman listened, continuing to eat. "After we got back, things got complicated. She disappeared. I tracked her here 5 years ago." She took a drink. Never mentioned a daughter. Not once in 15 years. The silent woman set down her spoon and reached for the backpack she'd placed beside her chair. She withdrew a small leather journal, water-stained but legible, and slid it across the table. "What's this supposed to be?" She pointed to the older woman, then to the journal. "For me to read?" A nod. "I don't need your life story, kid." The silent woman's face hardened with determination. She flipped the journal open to a specific page and pointed insistently to a passage. The older woman sighed, pulled the journal closer and read. Her expression changed, brows drawing together. "Alex knows where to take you if anything happens. Trust only her. She owes me nothing, but she'll help you. She'll protect you even from yourself." She looked up sharply. "Alex, Alexandra Riley." The silent woman nodded, pointing to her. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. That's been my name. Once." Alex closed the journal, studied the younger woman. "So you're Marissa's daughter." A complicated gesture, hand rocking, then pointing to her heart. "Adopted. Foster." A hesitant nod to the latter. "She took you in." Another nod. "And now you're running from someone." The silent woman's eyes dropped to her hands, which had begun to tremble. "The same someone who did that to your throat. Who killed Marissa?" A barely perceptible nod. Alex leaned back, jaw tight. "How'd you find this place?" The silent woman pointed. "To the journal again. And why now? 3 years later." She touched her throat, then made a motion like turning a key in a lock. "You were held somewhere?" A nod. "And you escaped?" Another nod, more emphatic. "Recently?" She held up 4 fingers. 4 days ago." Alex exhaled slowly. "And you came straight here?" The silent woman nodded, exhaustion evident in every line of Her body, her eyelids drooped despite her obvious effort to stay alert. Alex stood, gathering the empty bowl. "You can have the spare room tonight. We'll figure the rest out tomorrow." Relief washed over the younger woman's face. She started to rise, swayed dangerously. Alex moved quickly, catching her arm. "When did you last sleep?" The silent woman held up 2 fingers, then shook her head and changed it to 3. 3 days ago. Christ! Alex steadied her. "This way." She led her to a small room with a narrow bed, military neat. Nothing personal adorned the walls or surfaces. Alex pulled back the blankets. "Bathroom's where you found it. I'm across the hall." She hesitated. "I'm a light sleeper. Dog is too. Don't wander at night." The silent woman nodded her understanding. "I don't know your name," Alex said suddenly. The younger woman touched her lips, then shook her head. "You can't tell me or you won't?" She mimed writing. "There's a notepad in the drawer." The woman retrieved it, wrote something and held it up. "Everyone calls me Echo." Alex's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "Fitting. Get some sleep, Echo." She closed the door, leaving Echo alone in the Spartan room. Rain continued to drum against the windows, but for the first time in years, the sound didn't fill her with dread. She sank onto the bed, body aching with exhaustion but mind racing. Marissa had promised Alex would help, but Marissa had been gone for 3 years, and the world had changed. Echo had changed. The woman in the next room was a stranger carrying the weight of her own ghosts, with no obligation to shoulder Echo's as well. She touched the bruises at her throat, remembering hands tightening, the panic as air was cut off, the darkness that followed. She'd escaped, but for how long? They would be looking. They always found what belonged to them. Echo curled onto her side, pulling the blankets tight around her shoulders. For tonight, at least, she was behind a locked door with a fierce woman and a watchful dog standing between her and the hunting world. For tonight, she could breathe. Outside her window, headlights briefly illuminated the trees at the far edge of the clearing before disappearing around the curve. Inside the main room, Alex Riley saw them too. She checked her shotgun, whistled softly to the dog, and settled into a chair facing the door. It would be a long night. Morning arrived with reluctant grey light filtering through pine branches. Echo woke disoriented, heart racing, until she recognized her surroundings. The spare room, the cabin, safety, at least temporary. She dressed quickly in yesterday's borrowed clothes, folding the blankets with precision before venturing into the main room. It was empty, though embers still glowed in the wood stove. A clock on the wall read 6:42 a.m. The dog appeared from nowhere, a large German shepherd with intelligent eyes and a greying muzzle. It approached cautiously, sniffing her hand before allowing a tentative pat. A tag on its collar read Ranger. He doesn't usually warm up that quick. Echo startled. Alex stood in the doorway, a rifle slung across her back and a brace of rabbits in her hand. She'd been so silent that even the dog hadn't reacted to her presence. "Breakfast," Alex explained, hanging the rabbits on a hook near the sink. She shed her jacket, revealing muscular arms mapped with scars, both old and new. "Coffee's there if you want it." Echo nodded gratefully, moving toward the steaming pot on the counter. Alex watched her with calculating eyes. "How'd you sleep?" Echo made a so-so gesture with her hand. "Bad dreams?" A slight nod. "They'll fade. Eventually." Alex began efficiently skinning the rabbits. "You always been mute?" Echo shook her head, pointing to her bruised throat. "Recent, then. They tried to strangle you." Another nod. Echo sipped her coffee, the warm liquid soothing against her damaged throat. "Vocal cords damaged or crushed larynx?" Echo held up a finger for the first option. "Doctor said temporary or permanent?" She rocked her hand side to side. "So they don't know." Alex wiped her knife on a cloth. "You got a notepad?" Echo retrieved it from her room, along with a pen. Write down who I'm dealing with. Echo hesitated, pen hovering above paper. Can't help you if I don't know what's coming, Alex said flatly. Slowly, Echo wrote a single word. Brotherhood. Alex's knife stilled, her face transformed, something cold and dangerous replacing the stoic mask. The Shepherd's Brotherhood? Echo nodded, shoulders tensing. Religious fanatics with military training, Alex said quietly. Separatists who believe women should be silent, submissive, and breeding. She studied Echo. How long were you with them? Years, Echo wrote. Then below, Marissa rescued me at 17. They found us 3 years ago. They killed her. It wasn't a question, but Echo nodded. Her hand shook as she added, they kept me after. In their compound. Echo's face tightened. She nodded again. And you escaped 4 days ago. Alex studied her face. How? Infirmary. Guard fell asleep. Alex nodded once, returned to preparing breakfast with mechanical efficiency. When did Marissa find you? Foster system? Portland? She worked at the youth center. What was your connection to the Brotherhood before that? Echo's pen stilled again. She stared at the paper, then wrote, my father was a founder. Alex's eyebrows rose slightly, the only indication of surprise. You were born into it. A nod. But Marissa got you out. She recognized the signs, helped me run. And they hunted you for that. Echo wrote quickly, they hunt all who leave, women especially, property. Property, Alex repeated, the word like ice in her mouth. How'd they find you after all that time? My fault. Went into town for supplies. Someone recognized me. Alex was quiet for several minutes, methodically finishing breakfast preparations. She placed 2 plates on the table, gesturing for Echo to sit. They'll track you here. If not already. Echo's eyes darted to the window. Noticed the car last night, Alex said. Back road, not close enough to see the cabin, but they're searching. Fear flashed in Echo's eyes. She wrote, I'll leave after breakfast. And where? Echo had no answer. Alex cut into her rabbit, movements precise. Marissa was sure they'd come for her eventually. Had plans, backups, caches. She glanced up. She ever mentioned Montana to you? Echo shook her head. Safe house there, remote, well supplied. Alex took a deliberate bite. 3 days' drive, taking back roads. Relief bloomed on Echo's face before uncertainty replaced it. She wrote, why help? Me told you, Marissa saved my life twice. Alex's jaw tightened. And I've got my own reasons to hate men who think women are property. Echo studied her face, sensing a history as painful as her own. She wrote, they're dangerous. So am I. No boast, just fact. Echo believed her. We'll leave at dusk, Alex continued. Less visible. Need supplies first. She stood, gathering the plates. They have your photo? Echo nodded. Recent, she wrote, from before. Longer hair, healthier, different now. Good. Still, you stay here while I go into town. I know what to look for. Alex moved to a cabinet, unlocked it, and removed a handgun. She placed it on the table in front of Echo. Know how to use this? A hesitant nod. Marissa teach you? Echo wrote. My father did. Before I understood what he was, Alex's mouth thinned. Keep it close. Anyone who isn't me, use it. She checked her watch. I'll be back by noon. Ranger. Stays with you. As if understanding, the dog moved to Echo's side, alert. Don't make noise. Don't go outside. Don't turn on the lights. Alex strapped on a shoulder holster, concealing it beneath a flannel and jacket. If I'm not back by 2, there's an emergency pack under the floorboards in your room. Northeast. Path leads to a hunting cabin 8 miles up. Keys taped under the woodpile. Echo nodded, absorbing the instructions. Alex paused at the door. Your real name. Not Echo. The silent woman tensed, then slowly wrote, Rachel Shepherd. Alex's eyes narrowed slightly. Shepherd, same as my father Jacob Shepherd, leader of the Brotherhood. Understanding dawned in Alex's eyes. That's why they want you back so badly. You're their prophet's daughter. Echo, Rachel, nodded. Alex nodded once in return and slipped out the door. Within moments, the sound of an engine faded into the distance. Rachel sat motionless at the table, hand resting on the gun. Ranger settled at her feet with a soft whine. The silence of the cabin pressed against her ears like water. She rose, moving carefully through the space that had been Marissa's home. Here was evidence of her foster mother everywhere. Books on wilderness survival, framed photographs of mountains, a well-worn poetry collection. Rachel touched each item reverently, connecting with the woman who had saved her life once, and whose memory might save it again. In the main room, a locked cabinet drew her attention. The key was hidden, behind a loose baseboard, exactly where Marissa had always kept important things. Inside, Rachel found what she expected: maps, documents, a satellite phone, and a metal box containing cash and false identification papers. Her hands trembled as she lifted a small leather case. Inside was a silver locket containing a photo of Marissa and a teenage Rachel smiling by a lake. She clasped it around her neck, tucking it beneath her borrowed shirt. The hours crawled by. Rachel busied herself packing necessities into a duffel bag she found in the closet. Clothes, first aid supplies, non-perishable food. She counted ammunition for both the handgun and rifle, organizing it methodically. The Brotherhood had taught her to shoot before she could read. Marissa had taught her when not to. At 11:30, Ranger's ears perked up. He moved to the window, a low growl building in his throat. Rachel froze, listening. The distant sound of an engine, then silence. Coming from the wrong direction for it to be Alex. She grabbed the handgun, checking the chamber. Her hands were steady now, training overriding fear. Ranger positioned himself by the door, hackles raised, footsteps crunched on gravel. Multiple sets. Male voices murmured outside, too low to distinguish words. Rachel moved silently to the bedroom, retrieving the emergency pack from beneath the floorboards. She returned to the main room, positioning herself against the wall with a clear view of both entrances. A knock at the door, firm and authoritative. Ms. Riley, Forest Service, need to ask you some questions. Rachel didn't move. The Brotherhood often used false identities to gain access. Police, utility workers, delivery services. Marissa had taught her their tactics. Ma'am, we've had reports of a fugitive in the area. Dangerous individual. Just need to confirm you haven't seen anyone suspicious. Ranger's growl deepened. Rachel placed a calming hand on his head. The doorknob rattled. Ms. Riley, your vehicle's here. We know you're home. Rachel reached for her notepad, quickly scrawling a note and placing it in the emergency pack. If anything happened to her, at least Alex would know who had come. The voices outside grew more insistent, followed by the sound of someone circling the cabin, testing windows. Rachel moved into the kitchen, seeking a better defensive position. The back door splintered inward. A man stood silhouetted against the daylight, tall, bearded, wearing the practical clothes of a local but with the unmistakable military bearing of the Brotherhood. His eyes widened when he saw Rachel, the prophet's daughter. He breathed. Ranger launched himself forward with a savage bark. The man's hand moved to his waistband. Rachel fired. The shot echoed through the cabin. The man staggered backward, clutching his shoulder. Ranger's jaws clamped around his arm, dragging him to the ground with a pained shout. A second man appeared. In the doorway, Brother Michael. Rachel aimed at the new threat, but hesitated a fraction too long. The second man fired first. Pain exploded in her left arm, spinning her against the counter. The gun clattered from her hand. The man advanced, weapon trained on her chest. Rachel Shepherd, your father wants you home. She glared defiantly, blood seeping between the fingers clutching her wounded arm. "Call off the dog," he ordered. She couldn't, even if she'd wanted to. Ranger was Marissa's dog, then Alex's, not hers to command. The man's finger tightened on the trigger. "Last chance!" A shot cracked through the air. The man dropped, a neat hole appearing in his forehead. He collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. In the doorway stood Alex, rifle still raised, eyes glacial. She swept the room, checking for additional threats before approaching Rachel. "How bad?" she asked, examining the wound. Rachel pointed to the first intruder, now unconscious from blood loss, but alive. "Ranger got him good." Alex's voice was clinically detached. "Bullet went through your arm. Clean. Need to stop the bleeding." She worked efficiently, tearing a strip from her shirt to create a pressure bandage. Rachel winced but made no sound. She couldn't, even if the pain had been unbearable. "There'll be more," Alex said. "These were scouts." She moved to the fallen man, checking his pockets. She removed a radio, wallet, and keys. 4 men total. 2 here, 2 watching the road into town. Rachel's eyes questioned. "I spotted them. When I left, doubled back through the woods." Alex surveyed the destruction grimly. "We need to move. Now." She bound the living intruder with zip ties, gagged him, and dragged him into a storage closet. "He'll keep till the authorities get here. Eventually," Rachel wrote shakily. "The other 2? We'll realize something's wrong soon." Alex moved with military precision, gathering essential supplies. "Trucks hidden up the service road. We go on foot first, cross the creek to mask our trail." Rachel swayed slightly, lightheaded from blood loss and adrenaline. "Can you walk?" A determined nod. "Ranger." "Guard!" Alex commanded. The dog positioned himself at the door while she helped Rachel into a jacket, careful of the injured arm. She handed her the emergency pack. "You keep this. My truck has supplies." Outside, the forest had grown dim as clouds thickened overhead. Alex led Rachel away from the cabin, not along any visible path, but through dense underbrush. The dog followed silently, occasionally looking back as if checking for pursuit. "Creek's half a mile east," Alex murmured. "Then uphill to the service. Road, watch your step." Rachel stumbled once, twice, her injured arm throbbing with each heartbeat. Alex's strong hand steadied her without comment. They moved through the forest like ghosts, Alex pausing occasionally to listen or erase signs of their passage. Rachel recognized the techniques. Marissa had taught her similar skills during their years in hiding. The creek appeared suddenly, a rush of clear water over smooth stones. Alex helped Rachel across, supporting her weight on the slippery rocks. On the far side, she bent to wash Rachel's blood from her hands, scanning the opposite shore. "They'll bring trackers," she said quietly. "Dogs, maybe. The water buys us time." Rachel nodded, conserving her strength. The wound had stopped bleeding heavily, but pain radiated through her entire left side. They continued uphill, the terrain growing steeper. Rachel's breath came in gasps, spots dancing before her eyes. Alex noticed, slowed their pace marginally. "Half a mile more," she encouraged. "You're doing fine." Rachel wasn't sure how much time passed before they reached the narrow dirt track. Alex called the service road. Concealed beneath a camouflage tarp was an older model Ford pickup with mud-spattered plates. "In," Alex instructed, helping Rachel into the passenger seat before securing Ranger in the truck bed under a canopy. She slid behind the wheel, produced keys from her pocket, and started the engine. "Heading north first," she explained, putting the truck in gear. "Loop around to lose any tail, then east toward Montana." Rachel leaned her head against the window, utterly drained. Alex glanced at her with concern. "First aid kit under your seat. Antibiotics in the white bottle. Take 2. Rachel complied, swallowing the pills dry with a wince. Alex navigated the rough road with practiced ease, avoiding main routes. As they crested a hill, Rachel caught a glimpse of smoke rising in the distance. from the direction of the cabin. "They're burning it," Alex said, following her gaze. "Covering their tracks." Rachel reached for her notepad with her good hand. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "Not your fault Marissa saved you. Not your fault these men are what they are." Alex's knuckles whitened on the wheel. "Cabin's just wood. Can be rebuilt. The memories can't." Alex's jaw tightened. "Memories aren't in buildings. They're in here." She tapped her temple. "Nobody burns those unless you let them." The truck jolted over a particularly rough patch. Rachel gasped silently as pain shot through her arm. "Need to get that properly cleaned and dressed," Alex muttered. "First safe spot we find." They drove in silence for nearly an hour, following, logging roads and unmarked tracks through dense forest. Eventually, they emerged onto a paved county road. Alex checked her mirrors constantly, alert for followers. "There's a hunting lodge another 20 miles up," she said. "Owner owes Marissa a favor. We'll stop there, treat your arm, rest for a few hours." Rachel nodded gratefully. The adrenaline had worn off completely, leaving her shaking and nauseated. "You did good back there," Alex said suddenly. "Most people freeze their first firefight." Rachel shook her head slightly, wrote, "Not my first." Alex raised an eyebrow. "The Brotherhood, and after, with Marissa. They found us twice before. When she died, they took you back." Rachel nodded, her face a mask of pain not entirely physical. "How'd you survive 5 years there?" Alex asked. "Most would break." Rachel wrote slowly, "I pretended to, played the obedient daughter, waited, smart. Marissa taught me patience. Said sometimes survival looks like surrender, sounds like her." Alex's voice softened. "She always played the long game. She talked about you, said you were the strongest person she knew." Alex didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was rough. "Not strong enough to save her. You're saving me, trying to." Alex checked the mirrors again. "Don't count those chickens yet." Rain began to fall, pattering against the windshield. Rachel stared at the passing trees, each mile taking her farther from the life she'd escaped and closer to an uncertain future. But for the first time in years, uncertainty felt like freedom rather than fear. In the side mirror, headlights appeared in the distance. Alex noticed them too, her expression hardening. "Might be nothing," she said. "Might be something." Rachel straightened in her seat, alert. Despite her exhaustion, they'd found her twice before. She'd run 3 times now. The pattern was familiar. Moments of safety followed by pursuit, capture, punishment. The cycle seemed endless. But something was different this time. This time, she wasn't alone. Alex reached across the seat, squeezing Rachel's hand once before. Returning to the wheel. "We're not going back," she said with quiet certainty. "Neither of us." Rachel believed her. The hunting lodge appeared through the rain as dusk descended, a sprawling log structure nestled against a rocky outcrop. No vehicles were visible in the gravel lot. No smoke rose from the massive stone chimney. It stood, dark and empty against the deepening sky. Alex pulled around to the back, cutting the engine. "Wait here," she instructed, retrieving a key from beneath a fake rock by the service entrance. Rachel watched through foggy windows as Alex disappeared inside, returning minutes later with a nod. "Clear. Owner's gone till hunting season." She helped Rachel from the truck, supporting her weight. "Place has a generator and medical supplies." Ranger leapt from the truck bed, shaking rain from his coat before conducting a perimeter check of his own. Inside, the lodge smelled of pine and old leather, its walls adorned with mounted trophies that seemed to watch with glass eyes. Alex guided Rachel to a leather couch near a cold fireplace. "Let me check your arm." She worked with practiced efficiency, cutting away the makeshift bandage to reveal the wound beneath. The bullet had passed cleanly through the fleshy part of Rachel's upper arm, missing bone and major vessels. "Lucky," Alex murmured, cleaning the injury with antiseptic that made Rachel wince. "Few inches different would have been another story." She dressed the wound with supplies from a well-stocked first aid cabinet, administering a local anesthetic before stitching both entry and exit wounds with neat, even sutures. Military medic, Rachel wrote on her notepad, among other things. Alex finished bandaging the arm. Special forces, like Marissa. The revelation didn't surprise Rachel. Marissa had never discussed her military service directly, but her skills had spoken volumes. "Rest," Alex ordered, producing a bottle of prescription-strength painkillers from the medical kit. "Take one. I'll secure the perimeter and get some food going." Rachel swallowed the pill obediently, watching as Alex moved through the lodge with tactical precision, checking locks, examining sightlines, positioning Ranger at the most vulnerable entrance. The confidence in her movements was hypnotic, a dance of survival Rachel recognized from her years with Marissa. The painkiller took effect quickly, dulling both the throbbing in her arm and the sharp edges of her thoughts. She drifted, not quite sleeping but not fully conscious, as Alex built a fire in the massive stone hearth and prepared a simple meal from the lodge's pantry stores. A gentle touch roused her. Alex held out a steaming bowl of canned stew, enhanced with dried herbs and served with packaged crackers. "Eat, need your strength." Rachel accepted the food gratefully, realizing she'd had nothing since breakfast. They ate in companionable silence, the crackle of the fire and the occasional whine from Ranger the only sounds. "Headlights we saw turned off 5 miles back," Alex finally said. "Could be a coincidence. Could be they're searching side roads." Rachel nodded, unsurprised. The Brotherhood was nothing if not thorough. "We should be safe here tonight. Places off the maps, only accessible to members." Alex cleaned her weapons methodically as she spoke. "Owner's former military, Crawford, friend of Marissa's, trusted." Rachel wrote, "How many friends did she have out here? More than you'd think." Marissa collected strays. A ghost of a smile touched Alex's lips. "Broken people who needed somewhere quiet to heal. Like us. Exactly like us." Alex set aside her rifle. "Get some sleep. We move before dawn." Rachel settled onto the couch, wrapped in a blanket Alex provided. She watched through heavy-lidded eyes as the older woman positioned herself in a chair with a clear view of both doors, rifle across her lap. "I'll wake you if anything changes," Alex promised. Rachel nodded, allowing the medication to pull her under. Dreams came, fractured and vivid. Her father's voice, gentle when she was small, hardening as she grew. The compound with its stark buildings and rigid hierarchy. The day she tried to run the first time, 16, terrified, desperate. And the punishment that followed. Then Marissa, finding her at the youth center, recognizing the signs, offering a way out. She woke with a silent gasp, heart racing. The lodge was dark except for dying embers in the fireplace. Alex was no longer in the chair. Panic surged until Rachel spotted her silhouette by the window, peering through a gap in the heavy curtains. Ranger lay at her feet, alert despite his apparent relaxation. "Just checking," Alex said without turning. "Thought I heard something." Rachel struggled to sit up, wincing as pain shot through her injured arm. "You should be out another few hours," Alex observed, moving away from the window. "Nightmares?" A nod. "They'll keep coming. Might get worse before they get better." She added wood to the fire, coaxing it back to life. "But they will get better, eventually." "Did yours?" Rachel wrote. Alex was quiet for a long moment. "Some nights are clearer than others." She didn't elaborate, and Rachel didn't press. Whatever. Demons haunted Alex Riley were hers to share or keep. "Your father," Alex said suddenly. "He still leads the Brotherhood." Rachel nodded. "You were born there, in the compound." Another nod. "And your mother?" Rachel hesitated, then wrote, "Died when I was 12, childbirth. Baby didn't survive either." "I'm sorry," he changed after. "Became harder. The whole Brotherhood did. That's when you started looking for a way out?" "Not consciously, but I started seeing things differently." Started questioning. Dangerous in a place like that. Very. My father saw it as betrayal, needed to make an example. Alex's eyes hardened with understanding. That's why you ran the first time. He was going to marry me off to his second-in-command. Bennett, 43 years old, said he'd guide me back to righteousness. Christ. Alex ran a hand through her short hair. And Marissa found you after. Youth outreach program. She recognized the signs of abuse, offered help. Sounds like her, always fighting someone else's battles. She fought for me when no one else would. Said I reminded her of someone. Alex's expression shifted subtly. Did she say who? Her sister. Said she couldn't save her, but maybe she could save me. Alex turned away, stoking the fire with unnecessary force. Marissa never had a sister. Not by blood. She meant you? No. Someone else. Someone before. Alex's voice had gone flat. Someone. She couldn't protect. The fire popped and hissed, filling the silence that followed. Rachel sensed a boundary had been reached, a door Alex wasn't ready to open. Try to sleep more, Alex finally said. Dawn's still hours away. Rachel settled back onto the couch, but sleep eluded her. Instead, she watched Alex through half-closed eyes, studying the profile illuminated by firelight. The sharp jawline, the scar that bisected her face, the vigilant eyes that never fully relaxed. There was a story there, as painful as her own. Perhaps someday Alex would share it. Morning arrived with pale light seeping through closed curtains. Rachel woke to find Alex already packed and ready, the lodge restored to its previous state with military precision. How's the arm? Alex asked, noting Rachel's grimace as she sat up. Hurts, but functional. Good. We need to move. Alex handed her a mug of instant coffee and a protein bar. Truck's fueled up. I've mapped a route to Montana that avoids major roads. Rachel ate quickly, then helped pack the remaining supplies. Her left arm was nearly useless, but she'd learned long ago to adapt to limitations. At the Brotherhood, weakness invited exploitation. Alex watched her struggle briefly before stepping in. Let me. You focus on getting dressed. She passed Rachel clean clothes, jeans and a flannel shirt several sizes too large, clearly taken from the lodge's lost and found. Had to cut your sleeve last night. These should work better. Rachel changed in the bathroom, washing as best she could with one functioning arm. The face that stared back from the mirror was pale but determined, the bruises around her neck fading from purple to sickly yellow-green. She touched her damaged throat gently, wondering if her voice would ever return. In some ways, silence had become a refuge. In the Brotherhood, women's words were weapons used against them. Anything she said could become evidence of disobedience, impurity, rebellion. Silence had been her shield, her disguise, her survival. When she emerged, Alex was waiting by the door, truck keys in hand. Ready? Rachel nodded, shouldering her pack with her good arm. The morning air was crisp, the forest dripping with last night's rain. They loaded quickly, Ranger taking his position in the truck bed while Rachel settled into the passenger seat. 3 days to Montana, Alex said as they pulled away. If we're lucky, Rachel wrote, will we be? Luck's overrated. Preparation matters more. Alex navigated the narrow road with practiced ease. And we're prepared. They drove in comfortable silence, following unmarked logging roads before eventually connecting to a rural county highway. Alex kept them moving at a steady pace, never too fast to draw attention but never lingering. Around mid-morning, they stopped at a small gas station, in a town whose name wasn't even posted. While Alex filled the tank, Rachel ventured inside for supplies, a baseball cap pulled low over her face. The elderly clerk barely glanced up from his crossword puzzle as she placed water bottles, snacks, and first aid supplies on the counter. Rachel paid with cash from the emergency pack, grateful for Marissa's foresight. Back in the truck, Alex examined their purchases with approval. Good choices. low profile. They continued east, crossing from Washington into the Idaho Panhandle by early afternoon. The terrain grew increasingly remote, forested mountains giving way to rolling hills dotted with isolated farms and ranches. Used to train out here, Alex commented, before Afghanistan, good country to disappear in. Rachel nodded her agreement. The vastness of the American West had always represented freedom to her. Spaces too big to control, too empty to monitor. The Brotherhood's compound in Oregon had felt like a prison because she could see the mountains beyond the fence, the highways leading somewhere, anywhere else. As the sun began its descent, Alex turned onto a dirt track that led to a small motel, the kind with exterior doors and no security cameras. The sign simply read, "Vacancy" in faded red letters. Old place, Alex explained. Owner takes cash, doesn't ask questions, doesn't keep records. Marissa and I used it years ago. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Mission went sideways, Alex said. Had to lie low for a few days. She parked at the far end of the lot, room doors visible but the truck hidden from the highway. Stay here. I'll get us a room. Rachel watched through the windshield as Alex approached the office, her posture deliberately altered. Slightly stooped, less military precision, more road-weary traveler. It was a remarkable transformation. In the Brotherhood, deception was considered sin, but Rachel had learned it was sometimes the only way to survive. Alex returned with a key. Room 14, end unit. Owner thinks we're cousins heading to a family funeral. They unloaded quickly, Ranger trotting alongside as if he were nothing more dangerous than a pet. The room was basic, but clean. 2 double beds, a small bathroom, ancient TV bolted to the dresser. Alex secured the door, then performed her now familiar security check. Windows, sightlines, exits. She drew the heavy curtains, then connected her satellite phone to a small device that revealed no active electronic surveillance. Clear, she announced. We should be safe here for the night. Rachel sank onto one of the beds, fatigue washing over her as the adrenaline of constant movement faded. She reached for her notepad. How did you know about the Brotherhood searching? Alex hesitated, then sat on the opposite bed. Been tracking them for years, since before Marissa died. Why? Personal reasons. Alex's tone didn't invite further questions. Rachel tried another angle. How did you and Marissa meet? Special Forces, joint operation in Afghanistan, 2008. She was intelligence, I was tactical. Worked well together. Something softened in Alex's expression. She had this way of seeing through people's defenses, knew what you were thinking before you did. Rachel nodded. She'd experienced that uncanny perception firsthand. She never talked much about her military days. She wouldn't. Some things you don't bring home. Alex began disassembling her handgun for cleaning. She was different after her last tour. We all were. She had nightmares. Alex's hands stilled momentarily. We all do. She called your name sometimes. In her sleep, the revelation hung in the air between them. Alex resumed cleaning her weapon, movements precise but tension visible in her shoulders. We lost people. Bad mission. Not something she'd want to remember. Rachel sensed there was more, much more. But again, she didn't press. Instead, she wrote, "Thank you for helping me." Alex nodded once, acknowledgement but not dismissal. "Get some rest. I'll take first watch." Rachel lay back on the bed, arm throbbing despite the painkillers. Questions circled in her mind like restless birds. Why had Marissa never mentioned Alex? Why was Alex tracking the Brotherhood? What connected these two women beyond military service? She drifted into uneasy sleep, waking briefly when Alex draped a blanket over her. Through half-lidded eyes, she watched as the older woman sat by the window, silhouette sharp against the thin slice of light between the curtains. In that moment, Rachel understood something fundamental about Alex Riley. She was someone who had positioned herself between others and danger for so long that the stance had become natural, instinctive. The vigilance wasn't just training, it was who she was. Movement woke her hours later. Ranger stood alert by the door, ears forward. Alex was already on her feet, weapon drawn, signaling for silence. Footsteps passed outside their door, slow and deliberate. A shadow paused briefly, visible beneath the doorframe. Rachel's heart hammered in her throat. Alex positioned herself at the perfect angle, out of sight from the window, but with a clear shot if the door opened. Ranger waited beside her, muscles coiled with tension. The doorknob turned slowly, testing. Finding it locked, the shadow remained for several long seconds before moving away. Engine sounds followed, a vehicle starting, then receding. Random or searching, Rachel wrote when Alex finally lowered her weapon. Could be either, but we're not waiting to find out. Alex was already gathering their belongings. Pack up. We're moving. Despite the late hour, they were on the road within minutes, headlights cutting through the darkness as they headed deeper, into Idaho's remote wilderness. Know a place, Alex said. Old hunting cabin, more secure than this. Rachel nodded, trusting Alex's judgment implicitly. In the 3 days since they'd met, Alex had proven herself as capable as Marissa had claimed. Perhaps more so. There was a hardness to her that Marissa had lacked, an edge honed by experiences Rachel could only guess at. They drove for nearly an hour, eventually turning onto a rutted Forest Service road that seemed to lead nowhere. Alex navigated by memory, the truck bouncing over washouts and fallen branches. Almost there, she murmured, more to herself than to Rachel. The cabin appeared suddenly. A small, sturdy structure nestled among towering pines. Unlike the hunting lodge, this place had clearly been designed with defense in mind. Metal shutters covered the windows, and the single door was reinforced steel. Alex produced another key from her seemingly endless supply. Marissa's network, she explained. Places only a few people know about. Inside was Spartan but functional. Wood stove, basic furnishings, shelves stocked with supplies. Most importantly, it was invisible from the road and backed against a sheer rock face that eliminated one avenue of approach. We'll rest here tomorrow, Alex decided. Your arm needs time and we could both use the break. Rachel didn't argue. The constant movement, combined with her injury, had drained her reserves. I'll take watch, Alex said, but Rachel shook her head, pointing to the dark circles beneath Alex's eyes. You need rest too. I'll wake you if anything changes. Alex hesitated, then nodded. 2 hours, then we switch. She stretched out on one of the narrow bunks, Ranger curling at her feet. Within minutes, her breathing had deepened. Rachel positioned herself by the window, peering through a crack in the metal shutters at the moonlit forest beyond. Somewhere out there, men were searching. Her father's soldiers, hunting their profits. Wayward daughter. They wouldn't stop. The Brotherhood never stopped, but for the first time, Rachel felt something beyond fear. In the Brotherhood, she'd been taught that women were vessels, empty without a man's guidance, weak without a man's protection. Marissa had shown her those teachings were lies, and her years in hiding had proven her own strength. Now, watching Alex's scarred face in repose, Rachel felt something new taking root. Not just determination to survive, but resolve to fight back. The Brotherhood had taken her voice, her home, and Marissa's life. They wouldn't take her freedom again. Dawn was still hours away, but Rachel could feel it coming. Not just the sunrise, but something else. A reckoning. Morning arrived with thin sunlight filtering through the metal shutters. Rachel woke to the smell of coffee and the quiet sounds of Alex preparing breakfast. Despite her insistence on taking watch, she'd fallen asleep at her post, a testament to her exhaustion. You needed it, Alex said, noting Rachel's apologetic expression. We both did. She slid a plate of reconstituted eggs and canned ham across the small table. The cabin's pantry was remarkably well stocked, enough provisions to last weeks if necessary. Rachel ate gratefully, the first real hunger she'd felt since her escape stirring to life. With each passing day, she felt more human and less hunted. Though she knew the reality hadn't changed, the Brotherhood was still searching. Her father wouldn't rest until his daughter was returned to the fold, by force if necessary. "How long can we stay?" she wrote. "Day or two. Need to let your arm heal more before we continue." Alex sipped her coffee, studying a map spread on the table. "Montana's still 2 days' drive. No sense rushing if we've lost them temporarily. Have we? For now. But they're systematic. They'll work a grid pattern. Roads first, then back country." She traced routes on the map with a calloused finger. "Our advantage is knowing their tactics." "How do you know them so well?" Alex's expression closed. "Experience." Rachel sensed another boundary and redirected. Marissa never mentioned other shelters, other people who helped. Compartmentalization. Basic security protocol. Alex folded the map. "She wouldn't tell you about me. Wouldn't tell me everything. About you. If one link breaks, the chain still holds. Smart. She was, always thinking several moves ahead." A ghost of a smile touched Alex's lips. "Called it her chess mind." Rachel nodded, remembering Marissa's strategic approach to everything. From grocery shopping to escape routes. "Nothing left to chance, all possibilities considered. What's in Montana," Rachel wrote. "Cabin. More isolated than this. Off-grid completely. Solar power, well water, satellite communications when needed." Alex's eyes grew distant. "Place to disappear long-term if necessary. You've been there? Once. After Marissa died." Her tone made it clear that the line of questioning was closed. Rachel finished her breakfast in thoughtful silence. There were pieces missing from this puzzle, connections between Marissa, Alex, and the Brotherhood that remained obscured, but she'd learned patience in captivity. Some truths revealed themselves only with time. The day passed slowly. Rachel rested, allowing her body to heal while Alex maintained vigilant watch. They spoke little, but the silence was comfortable rather than strained. In the afternoon, Alex redressed Rachel's wound, approving of its progress. Clean, no infection. "You heal fast. Good genes," Rachel wrote with a twisted smile. Alex caught the bitter humor. "Your father's daughter in some ways, whether you want to be or not." The observation stung with its accuracy. Rachel had spent years trying to erase Jacob Shepard's influence from her life, but some things were written in blood and bone. His strategic mind, his physical resilience, his determination, these were her inheritance whether she welcomed them or not. "Use it," Alex advised, reading her expression. "Take what's useful, discard the rest. That's survival." Rachel nodded, slowly. She'd been doing exactly that for years, though she'd never articulated it so clearly. By evening, a restless energy had built within her. Confinement, even in safety, triggered memories of her captivity at the compound after Marissa's death. Alex noticed her agitation. "Need air?" she asked simply. Rachel nodded. 10 minutes. Stay within sight of the cabin. Ranger goes with you." Outside, the forest breathed around her, alive with early summer sounds. Pine needles cushioned her steps as she walked a small circle around the clearing, Ranger shadowing her. Movements. The space felt expansive after days of vehicles and small rooms, yet she remained acutely aware of potential danger lurking beyond the tree line. Marissa had taught her to scan constantly, to note anything out of place. It had become instinct, this hypervigilance, exhausting but necessary. Now Rachel let her gaze sweep the forest methodically, cataloguing each sound and movement. A flicker of unnatural color caught her attention, blue where there should be only green and brown. She stilled, focusing on the spot. Nothing. Then it appeared again. a flash of blue fabric, perhaps 100 yards downslope. Rachel retreated silently toward the cabin, whistling softly to Ranger. A signal Marissa had taught them both years ago. The dog immediately tensed, alert to the change in her demeanor. Alex was at the door before Rachel reached it, alerted by some sixth sense. "What?" she mouthed. Rachel pointed toward the flash of blue, then held up one finger. "One person." Alex nodded, retrieving her rifle from beside the door. She hesitated, then handed Rachel a handgun. "Stay inside. Cover the back if needed." Before Rachel could protest, Alex had vanished into the trees with Ranger, moving with the fluid silence of a predator. Rachel positioned herself by the window, weapon ready, watching for any sign of movement. Minutes stretched like hours. The forest had gone unnaturally quiet, birds and insects silenced by the presence of intruders. Rachel's finger rested lightly beside the trigger, her breathing controlled, and even despite the thunder of her pulse, a twig snapped somewhere behind the cabin. She pivoted, moving to the rear window with practiced stealth. Nothing visible, but the sense of being watched prickled along her spine. Suddenly, Ranger's bark shattered the silence, not the warning growl from the cabin, but a different sound. Recognition, not threat. Moments later, Alex appeared at the edge of the clearing, walking openly. Beside her was a woman in a blue jacket, tall, auburn-haired, carrying a rifle of her own with the casual comfort of someone born to it. Rachel lowered her weapon but remained wary. Alex made a subtle hand signal, all clear, before leading the stranger toward the cabin. "Rachel," she called as they approached. "This is Taylor Crawford, owns the hunting lodge where we stayed." Rachel opened the door cautiously, studying the newcomer. Taylor Crawford was perhaps 50, with weathered features and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She returned Rachel's scrutiny with equal assessment. "Marissa's girl," she said. "Not a question." "She mentioned you, said you had guts." Rachel nodded. Acknowledgement still uncertain. "Taylor's been tracking us since the lodge," Alex explained, securing her rifle. "Noticed signs someone had been there. Found blood on my couch," Taylor elaborated. "Got curious. Then I heard about a cabin fire up in Pinecrest Valley. Put two and two together." Rachel tensed at the mention of the fire. Alex noticed. "Taylor's good people," she assured her. "Part of Marissa's network." The older woman nodded. "Served with her in Gulf War I. Long time back. She helped me when things went sideways after. I help her people when needed." She unshouldered her pack, extracting a small satellite tablet. "Brought news you should see." Inside, Taylor pulled up a news article from a local paper. The headline was stark: "Fire claims remote cabin, human remains discovered." Rachel read with a growing alarm. According to the article, authorities investigating the cabin fire had discovered an unidentified body in the ruins. Foul play was suspected. "They're creating a cover story," Alex said grimly, "making it look like you died in the fire." Taylor nodded. "Classic Brotherhood move. Keeps it clean, keeps authorities from looking too hard for a woman who's supposedly already dead." Rachel sank into a chair, the implications washing over her. Her death would be recorded, official. No one would search for a ghost. "What about the missing Brotherhood members?" she wrote, showing the note to both women. "Expendable," Taylor replied with a shrug. "Shepard counts losses differently. Mission matters more than men." The assessment of her father rang true. Jacob Shepard had always preached sacrifice for the cause, though his own sacrifices seemed notably fewer than those he demanded of his followers. "There's more," Taylor continued, swiping to another article. "Your father's making a public appearance. Rare for him." The second headline announced a revival meeting in Boise, 3 days hence. Jacob Shepard, rarely seen outside his compound, would be delivering a series of sermons on family restoration and redemption. "That's not coincidence," Alex said, voice hardening. "He knows you're in Idaho." Rachel's stomach churned. The Brotherhood's reach had always exceeded its visible membership. Sympathizers in police departments, local businesses, even government offices provided eyes and ears in communities surrounding their strongholds. How could they know, she wrote. Gas station, maybe. Motel. Alex paced the small cabin. Or they're just covering logical ground. Idaho makes sense if you're running east from Washington. Taylor watched their exchange with sharp eyes. What's your plan? Montana, Alex replied. Safe house, off-grid, untraceable. The older woman nodded. Good thinking, but you'll want to. Avoid Boise now. Brotherhood will have people watching every road. How do we get around? Rachel wrote. North route, Taylor suggested, indicating on the map. Through the sawtooths, rough country, but passable this time of year if you know the roads. Adds a day to the journey, Alex calculated, but it's worth it to avoid detection. They spent the next hour planning, Taylor's knowledge of local terrain proving invaluable. As darkness fell, she prepared to leave. I'll run interference, she offered. Head back to the lodge, make it look like I'm just checking on the place. If anyone's watching, might draw attention away from you. Risky, Alex cautioned. Taylor shrugged. No more than usual. Besides, I owe Marissa. Still do, even after all this time. The words triggered something in Rachel's memory. Marissa speaking of debts that could never be repaid, of promises that extended beyond death. Whatever bound these people together went deeper than ordinary friendship or even military camaraderie. After Taylor departed, Alex secured the cabin for the night, her movements more tense than before. Rest now, she instructed Rachel. We leave before dawn, but sleep proved elusive for both of them. Rachel lay awake, listening to Alex clean weapons with methodical precision. The news articles had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Her father's public appearance was calculated, a message, perhaps, a declaration that the hunt continued. Past midnight, she gave up on sleep, joining Alex at the table where maps were spread beneath a single low-powered light. Alex acknowledged her with a nod, continuing to trace routes with a pencil. We should separate, Rachel wrote suddenly. Alex looked up sharply. Why? Safer for you. They want me, not you. Not happening. I've put you in enough danger. My choice. Alex's tone was final. Besides, solo you wouldn't make Montana, not with the Brotherhood covering this much ground. The assessment was brutally honest, but accurate. Rachel had survival skills, but evading an organization with the Brotherhood's resources required more than individual capability. It required a network, exactly what Marissa had built and what Alex now provided. Why are you really helping me? Rachel wrote, the question that had lingered since their first meeting finally surfacing. Alex was silent. For a long moment, her scarred face impassive in the dim light. When she finally spoke, her voice was low but steady. The Brotherhood took someone from me, too, before I met Marissa. Rachel waited, sensing there was more. My sister, Ellen, younger than me, got involved with them through a boyfriend. In time I realized what was happening, she was already deep in. Alex's expression remained controlled, but her knuckles whitened around the pencil she held. When she tried to leave, they made an example of her. The words hung in the air, their meaning clear without elaboration. Rachel reached across the table, covering Alex's hand with her own. I was deployed, Alex continued. Afghanistan. Couldn't get back in time. By the time I did, she shook her head. Too late. I'm sorry, Rachel wrote. Not your fault. But that's why I'm helping, why Marissa helped, why does Taylor helps. Alex met her eyes directly. Brotherhood's taken too much from too many people. The revelation clarified so much. Alex's knowledge of Brotherhood tactics, her instant willingness to help Rachel, the network of safe houses and allies. This wasn't just about one runaway, it was about a resistance formed by those who had lost to the same enemy. How many others? Rachel asked. Like us? Dozens. Not all are active. Some just provide safe houses, supplies, information. Others, Alex hesitated. Others take a more direct approach. Something in her tone suggested this wasn't merely about helping escapees. There was another layer to this network, something more proactive than reactive. You fight back, Rachel realized. Alex didn't confirm or deny. We do what's necessary, what's right. The ambiguity was answer enough. Rachel considered this new dimension, this underground resistance to her father's growing influence. The Brotherhood presented itself as a religious organization, but its methods were those of a cult. Its structure, that of a paramilitary force. Opposing such a group would require similar discipline and determination. "I want to help," she wrote finally. "You already are. Every person who escapes weakens them, contradicts their message." Alex studied her face. "But if you're asking for more than that, we'll talk again when we reach Montana, when you're safer." It wasn't a dismissal, but a pragmatic assessment. Rachel nodded, accepting the boundary. For now, survival remained the priority. "Try to sleep," Alex suggested. "Need you sharp tomorrow." This time exhaustion overcame anxiety. Rachel slept deeply, waking only when Alex touched her shoulder in the pre-dawn darkness. "Time to move," she whispered. They packed efficiently, leaving the cabin as they'd found it. Alex took extra care to eliminate traces of their presence, a habit Rachel recognized from her years with Marissa. In the wilderness, invisible meant safe. The truck was where they'd left it, concealed beneath camouflage netting. As Alex stowed their gear, Rachel took a moment to absorb the forest around them. The towering pines, the scent of earth and growing things, the absolute silence of early morning. Whatever happened next, she wanted to remember this moment. "Of peace. Ready?" Alex asked, Ranger already positioned in the truck bed. Rachel nodded, sliding into the passenger seat. As they navigated the rutted forest road, she watched the cabin disappear in the side mirror, another temporary sanctuary fading behind them. The northern route would take them through some of Idaho's most remote wilderness, the Sawtooth Mountains, 1,000,000 acres of protected forest, where even the Brotherhood's reach might falter. Beyond that lay Montana, and whatever future awaited her there. For the first time since her escape, Rachel allowed herself to think beyond survival. If she truly were presumed dead, if her father believed his daughter was gone, perhaps someday she could build something resembling a normal life. Not immediately. The Brotherhood's memory was long, their forgiveness non-existent, but eventually. The thought both frightened and exhilarated her. Freedom had always been theoretical, a concept rather than a reality. Now it shimmered on the horizon like a mirage she wasn't certain she could trust. Alex navigated with confidence despite the absence of marked roads, occasionally consulting a GPS device, but mostly relying on memory and instinct. They climbed steadily into the mountains, the air growing thinner and cooler as elevation increased. "Beautiful country," Alex commented as they crested a ridge, the valley spreading before them in the morning light. "Spent time tracking up here after I came back, helped clear my head." Rachel understood the unspoken. After Ellen, after whatever happened in Afghanistan, the wilderness had a way of putting human troubles in perspective, of reducing them to manageable size against the backdrop of geological time. They stopped briefly at a scenic overlook, stretching cramped muscles while Ranger patrolled the perimeter. Below them, forests stretched to the horizon, unbroken except by the silver ribbon of a distant river. No signs of pursuit, no evidence of human presence beyond their own. "Almost peaceful enough to make you forget," Alex said quietly. Rachel nodded, understanding completely. Almost, but not quite. Some memories couldn't be outrun, some wounds never fully healed. The best one could hope for was learning to carry them with greater strength. As they prepared to continue, a distant sound reached them, The distinctive thrum of helicopter rotors echoing across the valley. Alex froze, head tilted to locate the direction. East, coming this way. Rachel scanned the sky, spotting the black speck growing larger against the blue expanse. Military? Police? Or something else entirely? Brotherhood doesn't have air assets, Alex said, answering her unspoken question. But they have allies. Get in the truck now. They abandoned the overlook just as the helicopter crested the nearest ridge, its profile now clearly visible. A civilian model, the kind used for forestry surveys or wealthy private citizens. Alex drove with controlled urgency, seeking the cover of denser forest. Could be coincidence, she muttered, or not. Rachel watched the helicopter through the side mirror, its path intersecting with the road they'd just traveled. Coincidence seemed increasingly unlikely. Alex pressed harder on the accelerator, the truck bouncing over the rough terrain. Hold on. This is going to get interesting. The helicopter maintained its course along the road they'd just abandoned, hovering occasionally as if searching for something specific. Alex guided the truck deeper into the forest, following a game trail barely wide enough for their vehicle. Fire road ahead connects to an old mining track, she explained, navigating around a fallen branch. Used by locals, shouldn't raise suspicion. Rachel gripped the dashboard as they bounced through a shallow creek, water spraying from beneath the tires. The sound of the helicopter faded gradually, distance and dense forest canopy muffling its distinctive thrum. Not taking chances, Alex muttered, checking her mirrors constantly. If they have air support, they're more organized than I thought. For the next hour, they followed increasingly obscure routes. Fire roads giving way to logging tracks, then to trails Alex seemed to know by memory rather than markers. The terrain grew steadily more challenging, forcing them to reduce speed. Slower but safer, Alex said, noticing Rachel's questioning look. Better to take an extra day than risk detection. By mid-afternoon, they descended deep into the Sawtooth Range. The forest thinned, revealing spectacular vistas of jagged peaks and alpine meadows. In another context, it might have been breathtaking. Now, the exposed terrain raised Rachel's anxiety. Visibility worked both ways. Alex sensed her concern. Less cover, but fewer eyes up here too. Most people stick to marked trails. They stopped at a small alpine lake to refill water containers and stretch their legs. Ranger patrolled the perimeter while Alex studied their position on a topographical map. Another 4 hours to the ranger station, she calculated. Can make it before dark if we push. Rachel raised an eyebrow questioningly. Seasonal outpost. Closed until July. Good place to spend the night. 4 walls, roof, basic amenities. Alex folded the map. Taylor called ahead. Contact there will leave it unlocked. Another ally? Rachel wrote. Former Forest Service. Friend of Marissa's. How? Many people were in her network. More than I initially knew. Alex's expression softened slightly. She built connections everywhere she went. People responded to her, wanted to help. Rachel understood completely. Marissa Hayes had possessed that rare quality, authentic goodness that inspired others to rise to their better natures. She'd seen beneath surfaces, recognized potential in unlikely places. It had saved Rachel's life once. Now it continued to protect her through this web of allies Marissa had cultivated. They continued their journey, the truck laboring on steeper inclines. As they crested a particularly challenging pass, Alex slowed, pulling to the side of the narrow track. Look, she said quietly, pointing toward the valley below. From their elevated position they could see for miles. A thin ribbon of highway curved through the landscape, and on it a procession of vehicles moved steadily north. 3 black SUVs followed by a passenger van. Brotherhood convoy, Alex confirmed, passing Rachel a pair of binoculars. Standard. Formation. Through the powerful lenses, Rachel could make out details, tinted windows, the distinctive posture of men trained in both combat and religious fervor. Her father wasn't visible, but his presence was unnecessary. These were his soldiers, his hunters. "Heading to Boise, most likely," Alex said, reclaiming the binoculars. "For the revival meeting," Rachel wrote quickly. "Or they know we're in the mountains. Possible. Either way, we keep moving." Alex put the truck in gear, and we stay vigilant. The afternoon stretched into evening as they navigated the complex network of forest trails. Alex drove with unwavering focus, occasionally consulting a small device that Rachel eventually recognized as a specialized GPS with topographical overlays. "Military issue," Alex explained when she noticed Rachel's interest. "Modified for civilian use, shows trails that don't appear on standard maps." The sun was setting when they finally arrived at the ranger station, a modest cabin with a small observation tower perched on a ridgeline. As promised, the door was unlocked, though no one waited inside. Alex conducted her usual security check while Rachel unloaded essential supplies. The interior was basic but comfortable. Wood stove, bunks, simple kitchen facilities. Most importantly, it offered shelter with good sightlines in all directions. "Perfect," Alex declared, satisfied with their position. "I'll bring in more firewood before it gets completely dark." As Alex busied herself outside, Rachel examined the station more thoroughly. Unlike the previous shelters, this one contained personal touches, photographs of forest landscapes pinned to a corkboard, a collection of field guides on the bookshelf, a hand-carved walking stick leaning in one corner. A small radio sat on the counter, its display dark. Rachel switched it on, adjusting the frequency until a staticky voice emerged. Weather report for the mountain region, followed by local news. She listened intently, alert for any mention of a cabin fire or manhunt. The news concluded without relevant information, transitioning to music that filled the small space with unexpected normalcy. Rachel stood motionless, absorbing the simple pleasure of music after days of tense silence. Alex returned with an armload of firewood, pausing in the doorway at the sound. Something in her expression shifted, a softening, a brief glimpse of the woman beneath the warrior. "Been a while since I heard music," she commented, arranging logs in the wood stove. "Forgot how nice it is." Rachel nodded agreement. In the Brotherhood compound, music had been strictly controlled. Only hymns and approved spiritual songs permitted. Even with Marissa, they'd avoided unnecessary noise that might draw attention. This simple melody felt like luxury. They prepared a simple meal from their supplies, supplemented by canned goods from the station's pantry. As darkness settled outside, Alex secured the perimeter one final time before allowing herself to relax. "Slightly. Taylor should reach us by radio tomorrow," she said between mouthfuls. "Update us on the downslope situation." Rachel wrote, "Then Montana, if the way's clear, yes. 2 more days' travel, following back routes through the national forest." Alex studied her plate. "You'll be safe there. Off-grid, new identity if you want it. Fresh start." The words should have brought comfort. Instead, Rachel felt an unexpected, hollow sensation in her chest. A fresh start meant leaving behind not just her past, but her present, including Alex. The realization surprised her with its intensity. "And you?" she wrote hesitantly. Alex looked up, expression unreadable. "I have unfinished business with the Brotherhood," a nod. "Been tracking them for years, gathering intelligence, helping people get out when possible. Waiting for your chance." Something like that. Alex's jaw tightened. "They've hurt too many people. Taken too much." Rachel understood completely. Revenge was a powerful motivator. She'd fantasized about it herself during those 5 years of captivity after Marissa's death. But something in Alex's tone suggested more than personal vengeance. "You're planning something," she wrote. Alex was silent for a long moment. "There's a group of us, all touched by the Brotherhood in some way. We've been working to expose them, gather evidence of illegal activities, build a case strong enough for federal intervention. How close are you?" "Close, but missing key evidence. Financial records, documented abuse, proof of weapons stockpiling, things they keep well hidden." Rachel's heart quickened. She wrote rapidly, "I know where they keep those records." Alex's eyes sharpened. "What?" "My father's office, hidden safe, behind his bookshelf, digital and paper records. I saw him accessing them multiple times." "You're certain?" Alex leaned forward, intensity radiating from her. "Financial transactions? Weapons purchases?" Rachel nodded emphatically. During her re-education after Marissa's death, she'd been kept in her father's private quarters, a strategic choice meant to demonstrate his control while breaking her spirit. Instead, it had provided unexpected insights into Brotherhood operations. "He doesn't hide things from family," she wrote. "Believes blood loyalty transcends all. His mistake." Alex's expression hardened with purpose. "This could be what we've been waiting for, concrete evidence that turns a cult investigation into a federal case." Rachel hesitated, then wrote, "I could help you get it." "Absolutely not." Alex's response was immediate and firm. "Too dangerous. They think you're dead. Let them keep thinking that. No one knows the compound like I do. Security patterns, guard rotations, access points." Rachel's hand moved urgently across the page. "And I can access areas as Jacob Shepard's daughter that others can't." "It's suicide, Rachel." Alex rarely used her real name. The impact was deliberate. "They'd recognize you instantly. Not if we plan carefully. Not if I have the right help." She underlined the last sentence twice, meeting Alex's gaze with determination. For days, she'd been the rescued, the protected, the wounded. Now she was offering to be something else, a partner, an asset, an equal. In the fight, Alex studied her with conflicted eyes. "Even discussing this is premature. Priority is getting you to Montana safely. After that," she shook her head, "we'll see." The response wasn't a complete rejection, which Rachel counted as progress. She nodded, allowing the subject to rest for now. The seed was planted. That was enough for tonight. As Alex took first watch by the window, Rachel settled onto one of the bunks, mind racing despite her physical exhaustion. For 5 years, she'd been a prisoner, then a fugitive. The prospect of becoming something else, something purposeful, directed, stirred something long dormant within her. Sleep claimed her eventually, dreamless and deep. She woke to grey, dawn light, and the smell of coffee. Alex stood at the small kitchen counter, radio in hand, speaking in low tones. "Copy that," she was saying. "ETA?" Static crackled, then Taylor's voice emerged. "Noon, your position. Got supplies and news. Over." "Understood. Out." Alex set down the radio, noticing Rachel's consciousness. "Taylor's heading up. Brotherhood. Convoy spotted in Stanley last night. Asking questions." Rachel sat up, instantly alert. Stanley was less than 50 miles from their current position, too close for comfort. "They know we're in the mountains." She wrote, "Seems that way. They're showing photos, both of us now." Alex poured coffee into a chipped mug, passing it to Rachel. "Helicopter was definitely looking for the truck. Good call going off-road when we did." Rachel accepted the coffee, gratefully the warmth chasing away lingering sleep. "How did they get your photo?" she asked. "Security cameras at the motel, probably, or gas station." Alex's expression was grim but unsurprised. "Told you they were systematic. What's the plan now?" "Wait for Taylor. She's bringing alternative transportation. Can't risk the truck. Anymore. Too identifiable." Rachel nodded, understanding. The Brotherhood's reach grew more impressive and concerning with each revelation. Their resources exceeded what she'd witnessed from inside, suggesting external support, possibly from sympathetic officials or wealthy benefactors. They spent the morning preparing, packing only essential items that could be carried if necessary. Alex checked and rechecked weapons, cleaned her rifle with methodical precision, and studied maps of the surrounding wilderness. "Worst-case scenario, we go on foot," she explained. "Follow the ridgeline northeast for 8 miles, then drop into this valley. There's an old hunting cabin here." She indicated a spot on the map with emergency supplies. Rachel nodded, absorbing the contingency plan. Marissa had taught her to always have 3 escape routes, a lesson that had saved her life. Multiple times, shortly before noon, Ranger's alert posture signaled an approaching visitor. Alex positioned herself strategically, rifle ready, while Rachel covered the rear exit. Taylor's distinctive whistle preceded her appearance, a pattern of notes Alex clearly recognized. Tension eased from her shoulders as the older woman emerged. From the tree line, leading a pair of horses. "Transportation," she announced, tethering the animals to a post. "More practical than vehicles where you're heading." Alex greeted her with a brief hug, the first physical display of affection Rachel had witnessed from her. "Good to see you." "Likewise." Taylor nodded to Rachel. "Holding up okay?" Rachel gave a thumbs up, grateful for the woman's matter-of-fact manner. No pity, no excessive concern, just practical assessment. Inside, Taylor unfolded a map on the table, circling locations with a red marker. "Brotherhood's established checkpoints here, here, and here. Main roads covered. They're calling it a missing persons search, claiming Rachel's their vulnerable, mentally ill ward." Alex's expression darkened. "Classic cult tactic. Makes anyone helping her seem like the villain." "Gets worse," Taylor continued. "They've got local law enforcement cooperation in some counties. Not full support, but enough to complicate things. My father's influence," Rachel wrote. "He cultivates relationships with authority figures." "Smart strategy," Taylor acknowledged grimly. "Makes it harder to distinguish between legitimate law enforcement and Brotherhood allies." She traced a route on the map with her finger. "This is your best bet now. Forest Service trails through the wilderness area. No checkpoints, minimal patrols. Horses can handle the terrain better than vehicles." "Timeline?" Alex asked. 3 days. To the Montana border. Another day at the safe house." Taylor sat back. "Slower than driving, but safer." "What about Ranger?" Rachel wrote, concerned about the dog. "He'll keep up," Alex assured her. "He's used to rough country." They spent the next hour finalizing details. Supply distribution, rest points, emergency procedures. Taylor's knowledge of the backcountry proved invaluable. Her connections with Forest Service providing intelligence on trail conditions and patrol schedules. "One more thing," Taylor said as they prepared to depart. She extracted a small package from her backpack, from the network. Inside was a satellite phone, more sophisticated than the one Alex carried, along with identification documents in the name of Rebecca Winters. New identity, Taylor explained to Rachel. Birth certificate, social security, driver's license. Background strong enough to withstand moderate scrutiny. Rachel examined the documents with a strange mixture of emotions. Rebecca Winters looked back from the ID photo, a slightly altered version of herself with shorter hair and glasses. A ghostly reflection of a person who had never existed, but soon might. "Thank you," she wrote. Taylor nodded. "Marissa started the process years ago. We just finished it." The revelation sent a wave of emotion through Rachel. Even in death, Marissa continued to protect her, to provide paths forward. The depth of such care remained almost incomprehensible after years in the Brotherhood, where love was conditional, transactional, and easily withdrawn. They packed the horses efficiently, distributing weight with experienced hands. Alex had clearly spent time in the saddle before, and Rachel's childhood on the compound had included horsemanship, one of the few practical skills her father had insisted upon. "I'll head down, create some misdirection," Taylor offered as they prepared to depart. "Let slip in town that I spotted 2 women heading west toward Oregon. Might buy you time." "Appreciate it," Alex said sincerely. "Stay safe." "Always do." Taylor clasped Alex's shoulder. "Radio when you reach the border. Frequency changes daily. Schedule in the phone." With final instructions exchanged, they mounted their horses, sturdy mountain breeds accustomed to difficult terrain. Ranger fell into position alongside, seeming to understand his role without commands. Rachel took one last look at the ranger station as they departed, committing to memory the brief sanctuary it had provided. Another temporary haven in a journey composed of such moments, each one bringing her closer to a future she was still struggling to imagine. The trail narrowed as they ascended, following a ridge that offered occasional breathtaking views of the wilderness below. Under different circumstances, the journey might have been exhilarating. Now, each exposed section raised Rachel's anxiety, her eyes constantly scanning for the telltale glint of binoculars or the distant shape of a helicopter. As the afternoon wore on, dark clouds gathered over the distant peaks, promising weather. Before nightfall, Alex noted them with a frown. "Need to find shelter before that hits," she commented. "Storms move fast up here." They pushed the horses a bit harder, following the trail as it wound through a section of dense pine forest. The air grew heavier, pregnant with approaching rain. Ranger trotted ahead, occasionally stopping to wait for them at switchbacks. An hour later, they reached a small clearing containing a crude 3-sided shelter, little more than a roof, and walls constructed from rough-hewn logs open at the front. "Hunter's shelter," Alex explained, dismounting. "Basic, but it'll keep us dry." They worked together to establish camp, securing the horses beneath a natural overhang nearby. Alex gathered firewood while Rachel arranged their supplies inside the shelter, laying out bedrolls and organizing food for the evening meal. The storm arrived just as they finished, fat raindrops quickly transforming into a steady downpour that drummed against the roof. They huddled beneath it, a small fire at the open face providing warmth and light. Ranger lay between them, occasionally lifting his head at sounds from the forest before settling again. Alex maintained her vigilance, but the rhythm of the rain seemed to soften something in her demeanor. "Ever wonder about a different life?" she asked unexpectedly. "What might have been without the Brotherhood, without Afghanistan, without all of it?" The question surprised Rachel with its vulnerability. She considered it carefully before writing. "Sometimes, but it feels like wasted energy." Alex nodded slowly. "Marissa used to say something similar. Forward is the only direction that matters." Never could decide if that was wisdom or avoidance. "Maybe both," Rachel wrote. "Some things you can't change, only outrun. And the things you can't outrun, you face them. Eventually." Lightning flashed, temporarily illuminating the clearing before them. Thunder followed seconds later, reverberating through the mountains. "I meant what I said before," Alex continued after a moment, "about Montana being a fresh start, new identity, new life. You could build something real." Rachel studied her face in the firelight, reading the unspoken. "But you won't be staying." "I can't." Alex's voice was quiet but firm. "Not until it's finished." "The Brotherhood." A nod. "They've taken too much. From too many." Rachel wrote slowly, deliberately, "Including me. It's my fight too." "You've fought enough," Alex countered. "Survived enough. You deserve peace. So do you. But we don't always get what we deserve." The simple truth hung between them as the rain continued its steady percussion on the wooden roof. Rachel watched emotion flicker across Alex's scarred face. Determination, doubt, something deeper she couldn't name. "Let's get through the next few days," Alex finally said. "Reach Montana. After that—" She shrugged. We'll see what comes next. It wasn't a commitment, but it wasn't a refusal either. Rachel accepted the ambiguity, knowing some decisions couldn't be forced. Like trust, like healing, like finding one's voice again, some things required time. The storm raged through the night, occasionally waking Rachel with particularly violent thunderclaps. Each time she found Alex alert, vigilant, even in the face of weather that would surely ground helicopters and slow pursuers. Morning brought clearing skies and a world washed clean. As they prepared to continue their journey, Rachel paused at the edge of the clearing, taking in the vista of mountains stretching to the horizon. Somewhere beyond them lay Montana, and whatever future awaited her there. Alex joined her, following her gaze. "Beautiful, isn't it? Easy to forget what we're running from up here." Rachel nodded, then wrote something she'd been considering since their conversation the previous night. Not just running from, running toward. Alex read the words, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "Marissa used to say something similar. She was a wise woman, the wisest I knew." Alex checked her watch. "We should move, still have ground to cover." As they mounted their horses and continued along the trail, Rachel felt a subtle shift in their dynamic, a balancing, an equalizing. She was no longer simply the rescued, the voiceless burden. Something was evolving between them, a partnership forged in shared danger and mutual understanding. The path ahead remained uncertain, fraught with dangers both known and unknown. But for the first time since her escape, Rachel wasn't merely surviving, she was choosing. The Montana border appeared with little fanfare, a weathered sign partially obscured by pine branches marking the transition from Idaho wilderness to a new state. Rachel touched the marker as they passed, a small gesture acknowledging the milestone. 3 days of hard travel through mountain terrain had brought them here, each mile increasing the distance between her and her former life. Alex checked the satellite phone, confirming their position before consulting the map. "Another 8 hours to the safe house," she estimated. "Should make it by nightfall if we maintain pace." The horses moved steadily beneath them, sure-footed despite the challenging terrain. They'd proven invaluable, navigating paths too narrow or rough for any vehicle. Rachel had developed a bond with her mount, a dappled grey mare with intelligent eyes and surprising gentleness. She'd named her Whisper in her mind, though she hadn't shared this with Alex. They crossed a stream, water splashing to the horses. "Knees!" Ranger plunged in happily, cooling himself before shaking vigorously and continuing alongside them. The dog had proven as tireless as Alex had promised, keeping pace without complaint. "Different country here," Alex commented as they climbed a ridge that offered expansive views. "More open, fewer places to hide. Need to be careful." The landscape had indeed changed subtly, denser forests giving way to broader meadows and steeper, more dramatic mountains, beautiful, but as Alex noted, more exposed. Rachel remained vigilant, scanning horizons at regular intervals. By mid-afternoon, they reached a plateau where Alex called for a brief rest. The horses grazed nearby while they shared jerky and dried fruit, conserving their dwindling supplies. "Almost. There?" Alex said, studying the satellite phone screen. "No messages from Taylor since yesterday. Could be good or bad." Rachel wrote, "How secure is the safe house?" "Very. Off-grid, solar-powered, satellite communications only. No paper trail connecting it to any of us." Alex packed away the map. Previous owner was militia-minded, paranoid about government oversight, built it to withstand everything from natural disasters to siege. "Sounds cheerful." The comment drew a rare chuckle from Alex. "Function over form, but it's comfortable enough. Has everything needed for long-term sustainability? Garden plot, rainwater collection, root cellar." Rachel absorbed this description of what might become her home, at least temporarily. The prospect of stability after constant movement stirred. Mixed emotions, relief certainly, but also uncertainty. She'd been running for so long that stillness felt almost foreign. They continued their journey through increasingly remote territory. Alex navigated confidently despite the absence of marked trails, occasionally consulting compass and map, but largely relying on memory and instinct. Late afternoon brought them to a narrow canyon where sheer rock walls rose on either side of a swift-flowing creek. They followed its course for nearly a mile before Alex pointed ahead. There, homestretch, where the canyon widened, a trail switchbacked up the eastern wall, barely visible among scraggly pines. They ascended slowly, the horses picking their way carefully over loose shale. Reaching the top revealed another valley beyond, this one smaller and more sheltered than those they'd passed. Safe houses there, Alex indicated a distant point where forest met meadow. Can't see it from here. Designed to blend in. They descended into the valley as dusk approached, shadows lengthening across the landscape. Ranger ranged ahead, his behavior relaxed, a good sign. If danger lurked nearby, the dog would have signaled. The safe house emerged from the forest's edge so gradually that Rachel almost missed it. Unlike the crude cabins and shelters they'd used previously, this structure had been intentionally integrated into its surroundings, partially built into a hillside, its exposed walls faced with local stone, its roof supporting native vegetation. Alex approached cautiously despite Ranger's unconcerned demeanor. "Wait here," she instructed, dismounting and drawing her weapon. Rachel watched as Alex circled the perimeter, checking windows and entry points before disappearing inside. Minutes passed before she reappeared, signaling all clear. "Home sweet." "Home," she announced as Rachel dismounted, "at least for now." They tended the horses first, establishing them in a small corral adjacent to a lean-to shelter. Inside the house, Rachel discovered Alex's description had been accurate if understated. The space was ingeniously designed, compact but not cramped, utilizing every available inch without feeling cluttered. The main room combined kitchen and living areas, with a wood stove occupying the central position. A hallway led to 2 small bedrooms and a surprisingly well-appointed bathroom, complete with solar-heated water. Most impressive was the technology. Solar panels fed batteries that powered essential systems, while a small wind turbine provided supplementary electricity. Previous owner was paranoid but brilliant, Alex explained, activating systems with practiced ease. Everything duplicated, everything serviceable with basic tools. Rachel explored while Alex initiated the satellite communication system. The smaller bedroom contained a single bed, with a handmade quilt, a dresser, and a desk positioned beneath a window that looked across the valley. Someone had placed wildflowers in a jar on the windowsill. Recently, judging by their freshness. Taylor. "Radioed ahead," Alex explained when Rachel pointed this out. "Caretaker comes through occasionally. Make sure everything's functioning." "Another ally," Rachel wrote. "Old friend of Marissa's, Vietnam-era medic, lives about 20 miles from here as the crow flies. Only other person who knows this place exists." They settled in as darkness fell, the accumulated fatigue of days on the trail catching up with them. Alex heated a more substantial meal than they'd managed on the journey. Canned stew supplemented with dried vegetables reconstituted in the broth. They ate in companionable silence at a small table by the main window, watching stars emerge. "Above the valley made it," Alex said quietly, the simple statement acknowledging the magnitude of their achievement. 3 states crossed, countless obstacles overcome, a journey measured not just in miles, but in determination. Rachel nodded, feeling the truth of it settle within her. She was safe. Truly safe, for the first time in years. The Brotherhood believed her dead. Her father would eventually abandon the search, focusing instead on controlling the narrative of her disappearance. The thought brought complicated emotions, relief predominantly, but tinged with something like grief for the family she'd never truly had. "What happens now?" she wrote finally. Alex considered the question, her scarred face thoughtful in the lamplight. "That depends on you. Identity documents Taylor provided are solid. You could start fresh, college, career, normal life, become Rebecca Winters completely." Rachel studied her hands, the idea both tempting and terrifying. A complete reinvention, a life untethered from her past. Wasn't that what she'd wanted? What she'd been fighting for? And the brotherhood, she wrote after a long pause. Alex's expression hardened. They continue operating, recruiting, hurting people, until someone stops them. The implication hung in the air between them. Alex would return to her mission, gathering evidence, building a case strong enough for federal intervention. Rachel had offered to help, had valuable information that could advance their cause significantly, but Alex wanted her safe, separated from further conflict. "I meant what I said before," Rachel wrote. "I can help. I know you can." Alex's tone was gentle but firm. "But you've given enough, paid enough. You deserve a chance at normality. What about you? Don't you deserve the same? Different circumstances." Alex rose, moving to fill Ranger's water bowl. "I made promises. To Marissa. To Ellen. To myself." Rachel watched her move with military precision, even in this simple domestic task. Everything Alex did carried that same focused intention, the discipline of someone whose survival had depended on attention to detail. "Let me help, then leave," she proposed. "Use what I know, then start fresh." Alex didn't respond immediately, and Rachel sensed internal conflict. Finally, she sighed. "Get settled here first, heal completely, learn the area, establish emergency protocols, then we'll talk options." It wasn't agreement, but it wasn't refusal either. Rachel accepted the compromise, recognizing the wisdom in Alex's caution. Her arm still ached from the gunshot wound, and exhaustion lingered beneath the surface of her consciousness. Time to recover wouldn't be wasted. They established a routine over the following days, practical tasks interspersed with necessary security measures. Alex taught Rachel the safe house's systems, showed her caches of supplies hidden throughout the property, and established communication protocols with the network. A week passed in relative peace. Rachel's strength returned gradually, her body healing from both recent injuries and the longer-term deprivations of her captivity. She began exploring the surrounding wilderness, initially with Alex, then alone, while Alex maintained communications with their allies. On her solo expeditions, Rachel found herself listening to the forest with new awareness. The Brotherhood had taught that wilderness was something to be conquered, subdued, utilized. Marissa had shown her it could be sanctuary, protection, ally. Now she discovered something else, that nature existed without judgment, offering neither rejection nor welcome but simple acceptance. The Montana border appeared with little fanfare, a weathered sign partially obscured by pine branches, marking the transition from Idaho wilderness to a new state. Rachel touched the marker as they passed, a small gesture acknowledging the milestone. 3 days of hard travel through mountain terrain had brought them here, each mile increasing the distance between her and her former life. Alex checked the satellite phone, confirming their position before consulting the map. Another 8 hours to the safe house, she estimated. Should make it by nightfall if we maintain pace. The horses moved steadily beneath them, sure-footed despite the challenging terrain. They'd proven invaluable, navigating paths too narrow or rough for any vehicle. Rachel had developed a bond with her mount, a dappled grey mare with intelligent eyes and surprising gentleness. She'd named her Whisper in her mind, though she hadn't shared this with Alex. They crossed a stream, water splashing to the horses. "Knees," Ranger plunged in happily, cooling himself before shaking vigorously and continuing alongside them. The dog had proven as tireless as Alex had promised, keeping pace without complaint. "Different country here," Alex commented as they climbed a ridge that offered expansive views. "More open, fewer places to hide. Need to be careful." The landscape had indeed changed subtly. Denser forests giving way to broader meadows and steeper, more dramatic mountains, beautiful but, as Alex noted, more exposed. Rachel remained vigilant, scanning horizons at regular intervals. By mid-afternoon, they reached a plateau where Alex called for a brief rest. The horses grazed nearby while they shared jerky and dried fruit, conserving their dwindling supplies. "Almost." "There," Alex said, studying the satellite phone screen. "No messages from Taylor since yesterday. Could be good or bad." Rachel wrote, "How secure is the safe house?" "Very. Off-grid, solar-powered, satellite communications only. No paper trail connecting it to any of us." Alex packed away the map. Previous owner was militia-minded, paranoid about government oversight. Built it to withstand everything from natural disasters to siege. "Sounds cheerful." The comment drew a rare chuckle from Alex. "Function over form. But it's comfortable enough. Has everything needed for long-term sustainability. Garden plot, rainwater collection, root cellar." Rachel absorbed this description of what might become her home, at least temporarily. The prospect of stability after constant movement stirred. Mixed emotions, relief certainly, but also uncertainty. She'd been running for so long that stillness felt almost foreign. They continued their journey through increasingly remote territory. Alex navigated confidently despite the absence of marked trails, occasionally consulting compass and map, but largely relying on memory and instinct. Late afternoon brought them to a narrow canyon where sheer rock walls rose on either side of a swift-flowing creek. They followed its course for nearly a mile before Alex pointed ahead. There, home stretch. Where the canyon widened, a trail switchbacked up the eastern wall, barely visible among scraggly pines. They ascended slowly, the horses picking their way carefully over loose shale. Reaching the top revealed another valley beyond, this one smaller and more sheltered than those they'd passed. "Safe house is there." Alex indicated a distant point where forest met meadow. "Can't see it from here. Designed to blend in." They descended into the valley as dusk approached, shadows lengthening across the landscape. Ranger ranged ahead, his behavior relaxed. A good sign. If danger lurked nearby, the dog would have signaled. The safe house emerged from the forest's edge so gradually that Rachel almost missed it. Unlike the crude cabins and shelters they'd used previously, this structure had been intentionally integrated into its surroundings. Partially built into a hillside, its exposed walls faced with local stone, its roof supporting native vegetation. Alex approached cautiously, despite Ranger's unconcerned demeanor. "Wait here," she instructed, dismounting and drawing her weapon. Rachel watched as Alex circled the perimeter, checking windows and entry points before disappearing inside. Minutes passed before she reappeared, signaling all clear. "Home sweet." "Home," she announced as Rachel dismounted. "At least for now." They tended the horses first, establishing them in a small corral adjacent to a lean-to shelter. Inside the house, Rachel discovered Alex's description had been accurate, if understated. The space was ingeniously designed, compact but not cramped, utilizing every available inch without feeling cluttered. The main room combined kitchen and living areas, with a wood stove occupying the central position. A hallway led to 2 small bedrooms and a surprisingly well-appointed bathroom, complete with solar-heated water. Most impressive was the technology. Solar panels fed batteries that powered essential systems, while a small wind turbine provided supplementary electricity. Previous owner was paranoid but brilliant, Alex explained, activating systems with practiced ease. Everything duplicated, everything serviceable with basic tools. Rachel explored while Alex initiated the satellite communication system. The smaller bedroom contained a single bed with a handmade quilt, a dresser, and a desk positioned beneath a window that looked across the valley. Someone had placed wildflowers in a jar on the windowsill. Recently, judging by their freshness. Taylor. Radioed ahead, Alex explained when Rachel pointed this out. Caretaker comes through occasionally. Make sure everything's functioning. Another ally, Rachel wrote. Old friend of Marissa's, Vietnam-era medic. Lives about 20 miles from here as the crow flies. Only other people knows this place exists. They settled in as darkness fell. The accumulated fatigue of days on the trail, catching up with them. Alex heated a more substantial meal than they'd managed on the journey. Canned stew supplemented with dried vegetables reconstituted in the broth. They ate in companionable silence at a small table by the main window, watching stars emerge. Above the valley, made it, Alex said quietly, the simple statement acknowledging the magnitude of their achievement. 3 states crossed, countless obstacles overcome, a journey measured not just in miles but in determination. Rachel nodded, feeling the truth of it settle within her. She was safe, truly safe, for the first time in years. The Brotherhood believed her dead. Her father would eventually abandon the search, focusing instead on controlling the narrative of her disappearance. The thought brought complicated emotions, relief predominantly, but tinged with something like grief for the family she'd never truly had. What happens now? She wrote finally. Alex considered the question, her scarred face thoughtful in the lamplight. That depends on you. Identity documents Taylor provided are solid. You could start fresh. College, career, normal life. Become Rebecca Winters completely. Rachel studied her hands, the idea both tempting and terrifying. A complete reinvention, a life untethered from her past. Wasn't that what she'd wanted? What she'd been fighting for? And the brotherhood, she wrote after a long pause. Alex's expression hardened. They continue operating, recruiting, hurting people, until someone stops them. The implication hung in the air between them. Alex would return to her mission, gathering evidence, building a case strong enough for federal intervention. Rachel had offered to help, had valuable information that could advance their cause significantly, but Alex wanted her safe, separated from further conflict. I meant what I said before, Rachel wrote. I can help. I know you can. Alex's tone was gentle but firm. But you've given enough, paid enough. You deserve a chance at normality. What about you? Don't you deserve the same? Different circumstances. Alex rose, moving to fill Ranger's water bowl. I made promises. To Marissa, to Ellen, to myself. Rachel watched her move with military precision, even in this simple domestic task. Everything Alex did carried that same focused intention, the discipline of someone whose survival had depended on attention to detail. Let me help, then leave, she proposed. Use what I know, then start fresh. Alex didn't respond immediately, and Rachel sensed internal conflict. Finally, she sighed. Get settled here first. Heal completely. Learn the area, establish emergency protocols. Then we'll talk about options. It wasn't an agreement, but it wasn't a refusal either. Rachel accepted the compromise, recognizing the wisdom in Alex's caution. Her arm still ached from the gunshot wound, and exhaustion lingered beneath the surface of her consciousness. Time to recover wouldn't be wasted. They established a routine over the following days, practical tasks interspersed with necessary security measures. Alex taught Rachel the safe house's systems, showed her caches of supplies hidden throughout the property, and established communication protocols with the network. A week passed in relative peace. Rachel's strength returned gradually. Her body, healing from both recent injuries and the longer-term deprivations of her captivity. She began exploring the surrounding wilderness, initially with Alex, then alone, while Alex maintained communications with their allies. On her solo expeditions, Rachel found herself listening to the forest with new awareness. The Brotherhood had taught that wilderness was something to be conquered, subdued, utilized. Marissa had shown her it could be sanctuary, protection, ally. Now she discovered something else, that nature existed without judgment, offering neither rejection nor welcome, but simple acceptance. Sometimes she practiced speaking during these solitary walks, painful attempts that produced only raspy whispers. The doctor who'd examined her after her escape had warned that psychological trauma could prolong vocal recovery even after physical healing. Some part of her wondered if she'd ever speak again, and whether that even mattered anymore. She'd found other ways to communicate, other means of making herself understood. One afternoon, returning from a longer trek than usual, she found Alex at the communications station, expression grave as she listened to the satellite radio. Understood. Keep monitoring. Out. She terminated the connection, looking up as Rachel entered. We have a situation. Rachel set down her pack, alert to the tension in Alex's posture. Your father's giving a major address at the revival meeting tomorrow. Taylor's contact says he's been hinting at revelations about departed family. Alex's jaw tightened. Word is, he's planning to announce your death publicly. Martyrdom narrative, blame government persecution. Perfect recruitment tool. Rachel wasn't surprised. Jacob Shepard had always been adept at twisting circumstances to serve his purposes. Her death, whether real or fabricated, would become another weapon in his arsenal, another story to bind followers more tightly to his cause. He'll use me to grow the Brotherhood, she wrote. Alex nodded grimly. Already happening. Attendance. Numbers at the revival have doubled since rumors started circulating. Rachel paced the small room, thoughts racing. Her father's ability to manipulate truth had always been his greatest strength. Even in apparent defeat, the loss of his daughter, he would find advantage, create opportunity. The Brotherhood would expand, finding new victims, destroying more lives unless someone stopped them. She turned, writing decisively, We need to act now. Rachel, not later, now. Before he cements the narrative, Alex studied her with troubled eyes. What are you suggesting? I appear. Publicly. Prove I'm alive. Tell my story. The proposal hung in the air between them, radical in its simplicity. Alex's expression shifted from surprise to calculation to concern. Extremely high risk, she said finally. Brotherhood has people everywhere at that event. Security, followers, sympathizers. You wouldn't get within 100 yards before being recognized. Not if we plan carefully. Not if I have help. Alex began pacing, her tactical mind visibly processing possibilities. Even if you could get close enough, what then? The moment you're identified, you're in danger again. Everything we've done to get you here, wasted. Not wasted. My choice. Rachel underlined the last two words for emphasis. My voice to use, even if I can't speak. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. A voiceless woman determined to be heard, to speak truth against her father's lies. There are other ways, Alex argued. Anonymous statements, recorded testimony, evidence provided to authorities. All deniable, all dismissible. Me, in person, alive and free, that can't be explained away. Rachel's determination grew with each exchange. For years, she'd been defined by others, her father's daughter, Marissa's ward, the Brotherhood's property, Alex's responsibility. Now she was defining herself, choosing her path forward. Alex recognized it too. She sank into a chair, conflict evident in her expression. You understand what you're risking? Rachel nodded solemnly. And if something goes wrong? if you're captured. Again, she wrote steadily, then the resistance continues without me. But at least I chose my battle. Alex was silent for a long moment, studying Rachel with a gaze that seemed to see beyond the present moment to all possible futures branching from this decision. I can't talk you out of this, can I? Rachel shook her head, a small smile touching her lips. Then we do it right. Alex's voice took on the firm clarity of a decision made. Full tactical plan, backup strategies, extraction protocols. Nothing improvised, nothing left to chance. Relief and gratitude washed through Rachel. She reached out, covering Alex's scarred hand with her own, a silent thank you more eloquent than words. Your father expects a ghost, Alex said. Determination, replacing doubt. Let's give him one he won't forget. The next 24 hours passed in focused preparation. Alex activated the network, coordinating with Taylor and other allies to create a comprehensive operation plan. Rachel contributed crucial details about the revival venue, a converted agricultural center on the outskirts of Boise, where the Brotherhood had held gatherings before. Security will be heaviest here and here, she wrote, marking entrances on a blueprint Taylor had somehow obtained. But service corridors remain largely unmonitored. Brotherhood believes in visible protection. Deterrence through display. Alex absorbed this information, adapting their approach accordingly. Your father speaks at 8 p.m. We position you here. She indicated a backstage access point with direct line to the podium. Taylor and 3 others create distractions at key locations, drawing security attention outward. The plan took shape, detailed, flexible, accounting for contingencies. If successful, Rachel would appear at the precise moment her father announced her death, contradiction in its most powerful form. Media invited to the revival would ensure the moment was documented, the truth disseminated beyond the Brotherhood's ability to control. Final decision, Alex said as evening fell. We can still abort, find another way. Rachel shook her head firmly. This was right, this was necessary, this was her choice. They departed before dawn, traveling in a modified jeep Taylor had delivered, to a predetermined rendezvous point. Rachel wore clothes specifically chosen to trigger recognition among Brotherhood members, similar to what she'd worn during her years with them, but subtly altered to symbolize her freedom. Alex drove in. Silence, her focus absolute. Ranger had been left with the caretaker, reluctantly on the dog's part, but necessary for the mission. As mountains gave way to foothills and eventually to the outskirts of Boise, tension built between them, not unpleasant, but electric, with purpose. They parked in a predetermined location several blocks from the venue, where Taylor waited with final equipment and updates. The older woman embraced Rachel briefly. Marissa would be proud, she said simply. The words touched something deep within Rachel, acknowledgement of continuity, of carrying forward what her foster mother had begun. She nodded gratefully, unable to express the complex emotions, even with pen and paper. As dusk fell, they moved into position, utilizing the network of allies Alex had mobilized. Rachel felt strangely calm as they navigated service corridors and back entrances, her father's amplified voice growing louder as they approached the main hall. A daughter lost to the corrupting influences of a godless world, he was saying, his familiar cadence raising goosebumps on Rachel's skin. A child led astray, whose tragic end should serve as warning to all parents, all families. Alex squeezed her hand once. Support, encouragement, connection. Then Rachel stepped through the final doorway alone, emerging at the side of the stage where her father commanded the attention of hundreds. Jacob Shepherd faltered mid-sentence as movement caught his peripheral vision. He turned, the color draining from his face as recognition dawned. Rachel stood straight, chin lifted, eyes steady. A murmur rippled through the assembled crowd, confusion giving way to shock as those who knew her registered her presence. For a moment, father and daughter regarded each other across an unbridgeable divide. He, the prophet, suddenly confronted with living proof of his deception. She, the voiceless daughter, who had found her own way to speak truth. Rachel reached into her pocket, withdrawing a small recording device, one of Alex's contributions to the plan. She pressed play, and a voice filled the hall. Her voice, recorded before the Brotherhood had taken it from her, telling her story in her own words. As chaos erupted, as security personnel rushed forward, as cameras flashed from media positions, Rachel felt something shift within her. A weight lifting, a door closing on one life while another opened before her. Whatever came next, whether the carefully planned extraction succeeded, whether the evidence they'd gathered proved sufficient, whether the Brotherhood faltered or fought back, she had made her choice, had found her voice, had become, finally and irrevocably, herself. And somewhere in the confusion, Alex Riley watched with fierce pride as the woman who had arrived at her cabin, voiceless, homeless, and alone, stepped into the light on her own terms. Not as echo, not as ghost, but as presence. Not as a victim, not as a fugitive, but as a witness. Not as someone's daughter, but as herself, free. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.